Hi, welcome back for day 15 of the Wonder Wife Workshop. I'm Nikki Friedman, and until this point, we've been speaking a lot about situations where the wife is the one who's criticizing, correcting, and controlling. But what if things were really the other way around? What I want to do now is I want to begin our conversation of how to handle a husband who tells us something that we don't like hearing, right? So, what's our natural response? Many of us turn towards defensiveness. And like I said, this is a natural response, right? Defensiveness means we try to self protect. We perceive the situation as though we're being attacked, and we don't want that. So we start coming up with excuses or maybe even counter attacking, right? So we have an example. A husband comes home and he says to his wife, Shelly, is it possible for you to have dinner ready for me by the time that I come home from work? I'm so hungry when I walk through the door, and it's hard for me to have to wait so long for dinner. So, how does the wife hear this, and how does she respond? She hears it as, gosh, what are you doing all day, sitting around with your feet up? Can't you manage to get dinner ready on time? I mean, come on, can you be a little bit more organized and cognizant of my needs? Right? So that's how she hears it, and she responds like, I mean, seriously, what do you think I'm doing all day? I'm working my tail off here trying to take care of the kids and manage the house, not to mention I'm also working from home. I mean, I'm trying my best here, and I think honestly, you're being a little bit too demanding, right? So picture that scene. Maybe some of us have experienced something like this before, right? So once again, it's understandable that when we perceive that we're being attacked, we want to defend ourselves. But when we make excuses and when we counterattack, what we're really communicating to our husbands is that we don't value their feedback or their feelings. So I've mentioned researcher John Gottman several times here before. And once again, his research shows us that it doesn't matter if couples argue. All couples argue. What's really significant is the way that couples argue. And that is really a determining factor of how successful a relationship is going to be in the long run. So, according to Gottman's research, defensiveness is one of the most poisonous and deadly aspects to a relationship when we are arguing, right? So, when we start getting defensive, instead of backing down, what we're really saying is, the problem isn't me, the problem is you. And then as a result, our husband counterattacks. And then what we do is we counterattack. And it becomes like this ping pong interaction back and forth where it's not really productive in solving the problem or bringing the couple closer to one another. So, what is the antidote to defensiveness? It's not saying, you're right, I'm wrong, but it's taking at least some part in the responsibility for the issue at hand. So going back to the story with the husband who comes home and says to his wife, would it be possible for you to try to have dinner ready by the time I come home and walk through the door? The wife could respond and say, I hear you. It must be really hard for you to come in so hungry. I know you're working really hard, and I am really busy during the day. But I would really love to have something ready for you when you come home. I don't know if I can have the full dinner ready, but maybe I can have at least like a snack prepared on a plate for you so that you have something. Or maybe it would be possible if we can brainstorm some other solution together. You know, I'm really struggling here. Okay, so once again, it's taking some sort of responsibility, saying like, yeah, you're right. I don't have food ready for you when you come through the door. And yes, you must be hungry. I hear you. I acknowledge your feelings and they're valid. I'm going to try to do better, right? So I think that one of the most common pieces of advice that people often give to couples is don't go to bed angry. You need to resolve everything before you go to bed. And I think it's such a dangerous piece of advice because first of all, especially at night, many of us aren't thinking clearly. We're not in a place where we're able to get to a point where we can say, yeah, I can take part of the responsibility. Many of us are so, the expression that Gottman uses, so flooded when somebody comes to us with a negative piece of feedback that it's like we feel like we're under a state of attack, that like we shut down, or the alternative is we feel like we need to be defensive and attack. So if we can't get to the point where we can take a part of the responsibility, the best response is to take some time out, to take some time to really internalize what message our husband is bringing to us before we respond. So going back to the situation of, like that, let's say the husband comes home and he says that, I'm hungry and I would like you to have food ready. And this wife is feeling so attacked and overwhelmed. Maybe she just needs some time to say, let me think about what it is that you're telling me before I respond. I need a little bit of time. I'm feeling like I can't come to the point right now where I can take responsibility. And then by giving time, right, sometimes it's going to bed that night and just giving 24 hours to let it internalize and to really be able to be objective and take our ego out of the picture. At that point, we can then come back and say, you know what, yeah, you're right. I do play a role in this situation, and I am going to try to take steps to make things better. Rav Dessler, who's one of our famous Jewish ethicists with many good pieces, gems of wisdom for us to learn from. So one of the things he says is we make a huge mistake when we think that we give to those who we love. Really, you love to those who you give. And by taking our ego out of the picture and by taking part of the responsibility in these situations, that is an act of giving. And from that comes true love in a relationship. Thanks so much for listening.